Welcome back, everyone, to the Burnout Club. This is a place where we dissect burnout and success, one expert and experiment at a time. I'm your host, Patrice Bonfiglio, and today I am joined by Caroline Dowd-Higgins. She is the Chief Energy Officer of her own consulting firm, beyond also being a TEDx speaker and best-selling author, many other things. So, Caroline, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Patrice. I'm so excited to be with you.
Yes, and I'm always excited to talk to other people that understand burnout and know how to navigate through it. So this should be a great conversation.
Yeah,
Now, why don't you just start off by telling us a little bit about your story so the listeners get to know you?
absolutely. Well, Patrice, thanks. You and I are kindred spirits, and we were chatting before the show. We're both on a mission to really eradicate burnout. And I'll just give a quick nutshell recap so people have context. So I started my career as an opera singer and absolutely loved that, traveled the world. And one would think that that was an exhausting career. And on some
Mhm.
level, it was. There was a lot of travel, it was intense. But in the world of the performing arts, they really understand rest and recovery because you've got to be
Oh,
at your absolute best with health and well being in order to
right.
perform. Your body is your instrument. So I
Hmm.
transitioned out of that world after about a decade and found myself in industry, working in organizations and higher ed, nonprofit, and the corporate
Hmm.
arena in the talent development space. And it
Yeah.
became really clear to me very quickly that all of those industries are burn and churn. Get the most out
Yeah.
of your people for the least
Yeah.
amount of money, all the resources, and how do you spend and grind the people to get
Hmm.
everything you can out of them. And fast forward in 2022, after I finally raised my hand and said, I am experiencing burnout, I decided
Yeah.
it was time to get off that treadmill. And I opened
Hmm.
up my own consulting firm. I had been side hustling as a speaker, an author, and a coach for many years and decided
Right.
to make it my full-time hustle. And like you, I'm tremendously committed to helping people navigate burnout, whether they're preventing it or wiping
Mhm.
it out altogether, because life is too short. We should not be burned out.
Oh, and I love the insight about the performing arts
Yeah.
because the analogy of an athlete that needs to rest and recover and be at their, top level when they're playing. I
Yeah.
hear that all the time, but really it's so true, right?
Yeah.
If your voice is your instrument,
Yeah.
everyone is invested in you actually being at your
Absolutely.
best.
Yeah. I mean, and it just makes sense. And I'm so grateful that you
Mhm.
used the word investment. And we'll get into this,
Mhm.
I'm sure, throughout our
Yeah.
conversation. But there's no business case for burnout. It's expensive.
Right.
We're wiping people
Yes.
out. Not only is it not the right thing to do, I believe there are real ethical issues at play here. But when you think of that revolving door of talent, replacing those
Mhm.
people, retraining, onboarding, interviewing, that's not a smart return on investment. So I
Mhm.
actually think I'm confident that companies and organizations will be more profitable if they invest in their people.
That's one of the things that I found very encouraging because when you break this problem apart, no one wins
Yeah.
from burnout in the
Yeah.
organization. I'm like, okay, we don't need
Right.
founders or CEOs, right, to change their ethical stance. We just need people to care about the profitability, and that will naturally blend
Yeah.
with caring about the actual uh, existence of the employee population and
Yeah.
having them thrive. Right?
You,
It's
you,
it's a
you
very
nailed it.
rare case.
You
Very rare
absolutely nailed
case.
it. And I'm sure you and I regularly talk to leaders
Mhm.
and organizations who are complaining about this massive turnover and this revolving door and how expensive it is and how it
Mhm.
depletes morale and company culture. And frankly, it really reduces productivity exponentially.
Mhm.
So all of that is not fostering wellness, engagement, high productivity, or profitability. So
Mhm.
intellectually, there is a tremendous
Yeah.
case to make this happen. And I think if you and I keep plugging with the millions of other folks who are deeply passionate about this, we will move the needle.
Yes. I'm very confident as well that we can. I'm seeing that corporate leaders are looking for solutions.
They are.
I thought initially there would be some pushback about, well, this isn't real, this is an employee's problem. But I think the issue is just so critical now
Yeah.
that they're receptive. So what's something that you would love to say to every CEO or, board of
Yeah.
companies? What
Oh,
should they hear from you?
well, thank you for asking because there are so many things, but I will honor that we only have so much time today. But the things that I'm
Mhm,
going to share are simple and
mhm,
free. So many
mhm,
people think, "Oh my gosh, do we have to invest in all of this money to change things?" It's a mindset shift. And I would tell you,
mhm.
Patrice, the first thing, I have never met a person that said, I don't have enough meetings in my day.
Yeah.
Most people are saying they are overwhelmed with
Yeah.
meetings and they're in
Mhm,
so many meetings. I affectionately or sarcastically call it meeting palooza, that they end up working evenings and weekends to
yes.
catch up on the email that they missed because they
Mhm,
were in a meeting. And then they're looking for more time and space to do the work that they missed because they were catching up on the emails and the
mhm.
meetings that they were in. So
Yeah.
we often meet too much. And I think taking a scalpel and very strategically thinking, does
Mhm,
everybody need to be at that meeting? Does it need to be a
mhm,
meeting? Maybe it's an email. How do we
mhm.
leverage AI to automate some of the note taking and some of the
Yeah.
durations of the meeting? Not every
Mhm.
meeting needs to be an hour. So those
Yeah.
kinds of things are a really simple way to start. And I'm
Mhm.
confident that everybody listening can dial back on the meetings and be much happier and more productive.
Yeah. I would say that was a really key point for me in just being purposeful about the
Yeah.
time of the meeting, right? Initially, it was just like, okay, everything's an hour. I'm like, okay, what about a
Yeah.
half an hour? And then really pushing it to like, if this is really a quick update and a check in just to see if there's anything we have to deal with, could be 15 minutes. Right.
Yes.
And like maybe there's
Yes.
some buffer room at the end, but like to have the goal of just trying to quickly hear an update and
Yeah.
then move to the action on the next step, right? Like let's chop it up and
Yeah.
see, right? You
I'm
can always
I'm
change it
with
back
you.
to being longer.
Yeah, and what I love about that, you said we can always change it back. And I think if we adopt an experimentation mindset, give it a
Yeah.
try. Try it for
Mhm.
3 months. Try the 20-minute standing meeting where literally nobody is sitting and you're
Yeah.
energized to make the meeting happen. Have an
Yeah.
agenda, be really clear about outcomes and honor every voice in the room because,
Mhm.
well-meaning people that like to talk to hear their own voice, that's not an efficient use of time and it's not a strategic meeting.
Need a
We all
buzzer.
know them. Yeah. Yeah.
That's true. Oh, and it's so funny you talk about the standing meeting. I like that idea. I'm actually standing right now. I
There you go.
I just prefer it. And yeah, it helps me kind of stay in my in the zone.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah. I've even
perfect.
done walking meetings, one-on-one
Mhm.
meetings when I used to have a team and direct reports. It would be a
Mhm.
20-minute walking meeting. We would be
Mhm.
energized. It just relaxes the conversation. It gets more creative.
Yeah.
And it's a way to get up and move around a bit.
Yeah. And I forget the study or the scientists, but I have been told that having a walking meeting is great because it gets you to use both sides of your brain because you're using both sides
Exactly
of your
right.
body. So if you
Exactly
do
right.
need to hammer out a point between two people that,
Yeah.
maybe you're not seeing eye to eye, that's a great time to do it. So they
Yeah.
might be more receptive to ideas.
Exactly right. Yeah. And you're right.
Oh.
Let's mix it up a little bit. Try new things, right? It doesn't have to be the one size fits all that they did
Mhm.
20 years ago. And that's why we
Yeah.
still do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So now that you are on the other side
Hmm.
and you are more in control of your schedule and you are helping so many people, what does thriving look like and feel like to you?
Oh my gosh. So I don't want to be melodramatic. As a former opera singer, I can go there really fast. But what I will tell you is that my senses opened up and blossomed in such a way I didn't realize how burned out I was until
Mm,
I left the organization that really put me over
mhm.
the edge. Now, I want to be
Yeah.
clear, Patrice, because I'm not a blamer or a shamer. I was
Mhm.
culpable. I was very much involved
Yeah.
in that, and I allowed myself to get stuck in the whirlwind of burnout.
Mhm.
So I am
Yeah.
accountable and responsible. However, I also put myself in a place where they were celebrating overwork and
Yes.
overwhelm and work
Mhm.
addiction. But what I
Mhm.
realized on the other side was that I had these five senses that were dulled and muted. I mean, I all of a sudden started to see things brighter. It was like the Wizard of Oz, from the black and white to the color, who knew? And I was experiencing things on such a different level. And the energy that I had and the
Mhm.
space, I consider myself a creative person, but when I
Right.
had space and my brain had a chance to breathe, that's not the neurological term, but it actually
Yeah.
had space to
Mhm.
process, I
Mhm.
got more creative and more strategic and more innovative. And I
Yeah.
realized my senses were truly dulled because I was
Mhm.
so overwhelmed.
Yes. And how long did it take you to
Mm,
feel either like yourself or this, heightened sense of
yeah.
self? Because I've heard that it can be quite long for some people.
You are so right. And of course, it's different for every person.
Mhm.
But as I said, I don't think I really realized how bad it was and how
Mhm.
good it could be until about 6 months in. And friends and
Oh,
family members kept saying, it's like you're a whole new person. And they're
yeah.
right. I was, everything just changed, my energy,
Mhm.
my sleeping, the way that I conducted my life and my career. And I would
Mhm.
say, honestly, it took almost a year to really embrace a new life and
Mhm.
honor my wellness, my well being, and
Mhm.
prioritize things that allowed me to thrive. And
Yes.
I also want to say, I still work hard. I'm still ambitious. I'm still goal
Absolutely.
oriented. So that didn't
Mhm.
change, but I'm doing
Yeah.
it on my terms in a way that is sustainable.
Yeah. I think that's the key. When I
Yeah.
was trying to come up for this with this podcast, the wording was tripping me up because I didn't want that definition to be just scaling back, right? You're just
Yeah.
removing yourself and that's how you deal with burnout. Like, no, I want to be
Yeah.
ambitious and still
Yeah.
very hardworking. And there's part of me that loves that. And it just won't, that will never go away. So how
Right.
do I actually facilitate it so it's sustainable? I love your wording of it.
Yeah.
That's great.
Can I share a thought that I came up
Sure.
with? So
Yeah.
as a coach, I work with a lot of people who say, but I'm an overachiever and I'm known for that. I have a current client and I'll honor her privacy and
Mhm.
confidentiality and I won't name her, but she just earned the Workhorse of the Year award at her
Oof.
organization. And she's mortified by that because to
Yeah.
them, it's a celebratory opportunity. She goes above and beyond all the time. But in a way, it has trapped her in such a way that now she feels
Mhm.
she has to do that perpetually. She's even
Yeah.
fearful about taking vacation time. So
Mhm.
I've really reframed from being an overachiever, which is what I was, and I'm still a
Mhm.
type A personality. My
Yeah.
husband calls me a triple A. I'm very intent and wrapped tightly, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? But I've
No.
learned how to really honor that. But
Mhm.
now I'm a high achiever, and high achievers do extraordinary work.
Mhm.
Overachievers deplete and exhaust themselves. And this was my
Mhm.
experience because I wanted
Yeah.
everybody to see I was doing all this above and beyond work. So I
Yes.
finally gave myself permission to say, do extraordinary work and then go home and
Yeah.
enjoy your life, right? You have
Yeah.
agency in this. And I'm
Mhm.
still doing phenomenal work. And I don't say that with ego, but I'm proud of
Yeah.
the work that I do. But we have to understand that above and beyond should be occasional when those special
Mhm.
projects happen or it's crunch time, because we
Yeah.
can't do that perpetually. I'm not a runner, but it's like a marathoner running at a sprinter's pace for that
Yeah. You
entire
can't.
duration. It's just not possible.
Yeah. Thank you for being so open about, one, how long it took you to feel like
Yeah.
yourself. 'Cause I think a lot of people may assume it's much shorter. And
Yeah.
also just, how you are still able to be that person
Oh,
that is
yeah.
type A, right? So
Yeah.
you can lose the fear of having to drop your actual personality or how you process the world.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's
Because
great.
when I talk to leaders and organizations, they say, "Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, we can't tell people to work less, but we can work smarter and not
Yes.
hard all the time," right? So I don't want
Hmm.
the quality of work to change. In fact, this
Hmm.
is one really positive thing. The quality of my work skyrocketed when I wasn't burned
Mm.
out. I didn't even
Yeah.
realize how much the quality of work had slipped because I was focusing on quantity and not
Hmm.
quality. So that was a
Good point.
lovely result.
Yes. That's the best, in fact. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah. So talk about the transition. So a lot
Mm.
of listeners are either in the process of creating their own businesses or are entrepreneurs already. So what was that like leaving your full-time job and starting the new venture?
So really honestly and vulnerably, it was scary. I
Hmm.
mentioned that I had been side hustling for many years. So I had
Yeah.
established my LLC, my business
Hmm.
entity in 2011. So it was something that I was building slowly and consistently as a speaker and a coach. I had written
Hmm.
2 books. My second book actually came out right as I launched my business, my
Oh,
full-time business.
nice.
But I will say it is a leap of faith in a way.
Hmm.
And I firmly believe we're never 100% ready for something. We might think we
Hmm.
are, but often
Yeah.
people wait and they think, oh, I've got to be perfect. I don't even use that word. And I
Hmm.
adopt a phrase, and I want to give credit where credit is due. The amazing author and activist and thought leader, Reshma Saujani, wrote a
Oh,
wonderful
I love
book
her.
called, I love her too. And she's got
Yeah.
an awesome podcast. Anyway, she's great. We can
Yeah.
all love on Reshma, but she has a wonderful book that introduced me to the phrase brave,
Mhm.
not perfect. And I love that because if we wait for
Mm.
perfection, we'll never do it. So, in the spirit of experimenting,
Yeah.
put yourself out there, try, see what works. Are you going to fail? Absolutely.
Mhm.
And that's okay. But those are learning opportunities. And I wouldn't have it any other
Mhm.
way. So, was I perfectly ready? No. But I approached it with courage and with bravery and just the willingness to forgive myself to say, it's not going to be exactly right. And that's okay.
Mhm.
But
Yes,
it's getting
that
better all the
that's
time.
huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, a very good point. Yeah, just, ask yourself, am I brave enough to just start or do
Yeah,
one little thing?
exactly.
Usually you can.
Yeah.
Yes. So now that you are have your own consulting firm full time, is there anything with either your speaking engagements, the
Mm.
topics, or the topics in your books that you published prior to starting the consulting firm that you would change or add to?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that I've learned, not only from mentors and leaders who have guided me, but now as the chief energy officer in my own business, is that
Mhm.
we have so much power, and power can be used for good or for ill. But
Mhm.
power is not given, it's taken. And we need to all take our power, embrace our power, and use it. A
Mhm.
very popular word that's trending right now is agency, right? We have the
Oh yeah.
agency to do things. And I
Mhm.
see so often with clients, even friends and families, that we feel powerless. Now, I get it. We
Mhm.
don't always have control to change everything. So we have to
Mhm.
surrender some things that we cannot control, but we have tremendous power to change things we can control. And I think that's a
Mhm.
universal message that I would share with everybody. Really take some time and reflect on the power that you have and what you can
Mhm.
control and invest that energy in that.
It's always nice to have something new
Yeah.
to take away with. That's fantastic. Do you have specific advice for anyone that maybe wants to stay in their company
Mhm.
and and begin to thrive after
Yeah.
maybe burning out? They don't want to go on their own venture. What would you say to them?
I'm so glad you asked because the truth is not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur and that's okay,
Right.
right? The business
Hmm.
development is real and challenging, especially in difficult times. So working for an
Hmm.
organization can be very appealing to most people and it should be. So I have this concept of thrive where you are. And very
Hmm.
simply, getting back to the basics, does this organization honor my values, what's important to me, what my beliefs are? And I don't mean spiritual beliefs. I mean, that could be
Hmm.
if you're involved in an organization that celebrates that, but what matters to you? And think about how you can champion yourself honoring
Hmm.
what you need. So let me give you an example so your listeners will understand. Let's say that flexibility would help you perform your work better. Maybe you have little
Hmm.
kids and you've got to get them on the bus for school at 9 o'clock, but your team always has a 9 o'clock meeting, and that just hits right in the middle of the commute, getting the kids on the bus.
Yeah.
So advocate for yourself and say, could we try a 10 o'clock meeting? Because that would
Hmm.
help me. And who else on the team might we be able to honor with a little flexibility here? We
Hmm.
don't always have to be fearful saying, well, they'll never change the meeting because it's just me, right? Speak up,
Yeah.
be brave, and ask for what you need. So that's one
Hmm.
thing. And then another thing, Patrice, it's all about supply and demand. And when I think
Hmm.
of difficult times, whether it's a recession or an economic downturn or any number of things that happen in our world, The people that are the most solvent are the folks that can solve problems in their
Yes.
organization, critical needs. So think
Hmm.
about your superpowers. What can you do to help your company, your team, your department thrive?
Hmm.
And lean into those and don't be shy. Be really clear about the value that you bring.
Hmm. That's great advice. I love the problem solving piece
Yep.
of it. I personally find that fun, but
Me too.
everyone
Me too.
everyone appreciates a problem solver.
Yeah.
Someone that makes your life easier.
Yeah.
It's a slam dunk, really.
It is. And it also doesn't mean that you personally have to alone solve the problem, but you might have
Yes.
creative ideas and you might be able to
Hmm.
convene a group of colleagues who together could solve that
Hmm.
problem.
Yes. So, this is, I guess, specifically about one portion of your career where you were, I think, talent development
Yeah.
in academia.
Yes.
Um, what is that sector industry like? Because I am not there, so I'm
Yeah.
interested to know a little bit more about it. If there's unique challenges or maybe areas of opportunity for burnout to be dealt with a bit easier than others.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And I certainly don't want to be negative about higher ed holistically, but it's under
Mhm.
attack right now. And I don't want to
Mm,
get political, but there's
yeah.
pretty clear that funding is being taken away, especially from higher ed institutions, colleges and
Yeah.
universities, right? So
Hmm.
they're completely under the microscope right now with their funding. DEI is being erased. So it is an
Hmm.
industry under fire, but it's an
Yeah.
important industry because it's training the next generation. And I don't just mean
Mhm.
4-year colleges, I mean community colleges and institutes that are helping people achieve short-term certifications to get them out
Yeah.
into the world of work. So it's
Mhm.
imperative for civilized societies to think about how we educate and train and upskill our populations. But I would tell
Absolutely.
you, it's very tricky right now in higher ed, but there are some
Mhm.
wonderful benefits of higher ed too. They really value continuous education and learning and development. And
Mhm.
what I find tricky about the nonprofit and the higher ed institutions, and I'm broad brushing now, but
Mhm.
often because they're making the world a better place, right? Their missions are
Yeah.
very valiant. They can also be under resourced depending upon their state, their location.
Mhm.
And that's where burnout can really creep in because they're so
Yeah.
mission driven. They're doing this great
Mhm.
work, but they can often exploit the employees because we're there to do
Mhm.
great work. Even though you're not getting paid well, keep in it because we're helping save the world. And
Yeah.
I would tell everybody out there, whether you're in a corporate entity, nonprofit, or higher ed, you have to prioritize yourself first. And we have to
Mhm.
really be cognizant of not being exploited and
Mhm.
understanding our value and being able to say enough or setting
Yeah.
boundaries. We need to teach people how to treat us.
Mhm. That's a key point. And I know there are people that find that very difficult, just
Yeah.
the fear that it would backfire.
Yeah.
Is there any sort of mantra or strategy that you can share with listeners that may struggle more than others with standing up for themselves?
And it's hard. I would tell you,
Mhm.
don't wing it, right? And don't be emotional. Practice, really think about who are your trusted confidants, your advisors, maybe you have
Mhm.
mentors, maybe you even have a sponsor. And a sponsor is someone
Mhm.
who will put their reputation on the line and say, Patrice is extraordinary. I've seen her great work. I've experienced her. We want to put her up for
Mhm.
this promotion or this special project. So
Yeah.
find your people, find your advocates and your allies and
Mhm.
practice with them. And again, you're not coming at it from an emotional point of you're not treating me well and this is highly
Yeah.
inappropriate. That might be how you feel on the inside, but you need to make a case and bring evidence and facts and data to the table and help others understand this will empower me to do my best work. And
Mhm.
that's really my message to everybody. It's not a black and white situation. There's a lot of gray in the middle, but we need
Mhm.
to come to the table making a solid business case because every organization, even nonprofits and higher eds that are 501c3s,
Mhm.
really important to think about their fiscal solvency, right?
Yeah.
Nonprofit is a tax status. It doesn't mean they don't have bills to pay.
Mm. Very true. I I love that. you said don't wing it. That's very, very good advice.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
don't lead with whatever is popping into your head.
Exactly. Yeah, and we
That's
get
so true.
emotional. I mean, I totally
Mhm,
understand that. I'm an emotional being and I get that. But breathe, sleep on it,
mhm,
practice, create a
mhm,
script and
mhm,
have that conversation with someone you trust first before you
mhm.
bring it to your leader or someone in the organization.
Yes. Now, with your either current clients or past clients, are there any themes that could be useful to share?
Yeah, yeah. So I mentioned that mindset shift from high achiever to overachiever, but I also
Yeah.
think it's important for us to ask for help. So
Hmm.
many people feel embarrassed or the shame of I don't want anyone to know that I'm burned out because they're going to think I'm a lesser person or I don't have a
Hmm.
work ethic. And I
Yeah.
get that. I lived that for many years. I was known as the burn the candle at both ends. She'll do it,
Yeah.
put her in. She's the one that will get it done. And there's a pride in that, but then you
Hmm.
realize in my case, I was self exploiting. So I would say,
Hmm.
have the courage to ask for help. And it's very much okay for you to go to your boss or your direct supervisor and say, the supply and the demand here is
Hmm.
creating an environment where you're not getting my best work. I'm trying to do
Yeah.
everything, but I'm not doing anything extraordinarily well. So I'm stuck at
Hmm.
mediocre. And I believe I would do better and do higher quality work if we can figure out how to prioritize this or maybe redistribute some of this. Because if you
Hmm.
don't show them that you're bleeding a little bit, you'll never get a band aid.
Yeah. And I mean, do you find that when your clients open up and ask for help, that it's received well?
I do. Now it depends, right? Again,
Hmm.
I hate to be so vague. It depends response, but
Makes
there are
sense.
some jerks in the world of work, right? There are some bosses that just don't get
Hmm.
it and won't get it. And
Hmm.
again, each individual in that situation needs to really have some reflection and figure out, is this the place I'm going to do my best work? Is
Hmm.
this the boss that will
Yeah.
empower me to succeed? And that's a
Hmm.
personal choice. But I would say most often the boss and the supervisor are grateful for that vulnerability and that
Hmm.
authenticity. And in my belief, the boss and the supervisor are there to get rid of the hurdles and the obstacles so you can do your
Hmm.
best work. And
Yeah.
there is always a solution if you're willing to roll up your sleeves and think creatively. And as we said earlier, experiment. You don't have to put it in this massive proposal right away, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to become a policy. Experiment for a few months, see what works.
Mhm. That's it, you get it. That's what this show's all about.
Yay!
The big experiment. But I also find that having employees just take a moment and think about the manager supervisor's role
Yeah,
and what burnout they might be experiencing. Right. So if I find that conversations are great when everyone's acknowledging like, okay, there's some
yeah,
constraints and like, what are the most important areas? Because maybe there's misalignment between that and in the hierarchy. Uh,
yeah.
so there's always room for conversations around
Mhm.
how to succeed like collectively as a group.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think sometimes the overwhelm experience and the stress and the anxiety and the frustration, that's
Mhm,
heightened when we're in burnout, and the
mhm.
fear sets in of, "Oh my gosh, I don't want them to see that I'm having a hard time," and that's
Yeah,
exactly the time to be honest, so things can be changed and adjusted.
yeah. And I mean, statistically, I think companies know that employees are experiencing burnout, so
Yeah,
it shouldn't
yeah.
be a shocker to anyone.
Exactly. And
Mm,
I guarantee that there are discoveries there that you realize my boss is burned out too. So this is a
yeah.
company issue, this is an organizational issue. How do we bring this to, executive leadership at the top to say
Hmm.
it's time for a culture shift?
Hmm. Yes. Huge point. Yeah. You can actually amplify the change just by
Well
starting
said.
that conversation.
Well said.
Perfect. So now, what about on the lighter side? What do you do to bring yourself joy and become revitalized? Because as you said, you're still
Yeah.
working hard even though
Still working.
you're
Yeah.
not in the middle of burnout, right? So
Yeah.
how do you actually recharge?
Yeah, so a couple of things, and I want to be really honest and vulnerable with you and your audience. So it
Mm,
took me months to figure out how to play again because I
yeah.
hadn't given myself permission, and I had some
Hmm.
extra time, and I'm looking around, and my husband and I are thinking, what do we do? I mean, you
Yeah.
can't always go on a vacation or go on a trip. And I realized I had to
Yeah.
retrain myself to just be be
Mhm.
present, or also just do silly fun things. We have dogs, and just get on the ground and play with the dogs or throw a ball. I mean, I had
Yeah.
to take those baby steps to realize how to
Mhm.
let joy back in, because I wasn't
Yeah.
tethered to my phone or my laptop. So give yourself
Mhm.
that space, but then create a list of things that you just love to do. Maybe go back to that hobby, or something that you haven't done in a long time. I was talking to a client the other day. She had always played piano as a hobby, but she hadn't touched
Mhm.
it in years, but still has the piano in her house. And I said, after dinner, a couple nights a week, play for 20 minutes, see what happens. And,
Mhm.
all of a sudden it re energized this joy that she had. That's absolutely a hobby, an avocation. And she said, I didn't realize how much I missed it until I gave myself that 20 minutes to play. So, for me, I love to go to the theater. We love to
Mhm.
hike in the woods with our dogs. We do love to travel, and those are bigger things. But I realized, have friends over for dinner, things that I couldn't
Mhm.
do regularly because I was working so much. And
Yeah.
letting those little spaces in has been so re energizing.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I love the example of just playing with the dog because
Yeah.
you're so right. Right? It's like when you're on autopilot, like the dog's
Yeah.
there, but you're not playing
I
with
know,
it.
I know. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, the dog was at my feet during a Zoom call, looking adoringly, saying, "Take
Yeah.
me out," and I'd be like, "Oh my God, I got a meeting." And then I
Yeah.
realized unconditional love, play with the dog.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm gonna go play with my dogs after
Yeah.
this.
Well done. Me too.
Oh, that's great. So you've been amazing with all of your themes and introspection. So is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience that you really want them to hold on to?
Yeah, sadly, so many people, and these are people in my orbit, have had
Mm-hmm.
serious health problems because of burnout. I say this to intentionally scare people, and
Hmm.
I don't like to do that, but I want people to understand the consequences of ignoring our health and well-being are
Hmm.
not just in our career, they're in our lives. I mean, I have
Yeah.
seen people with health issues, with autoimmune issues, or health, I keep saying health, heart attack issues,
Oh,
right?
yes.
Those are serious. And
Hmm.
I feel so grateful and lucky that I came out relatively unscathed with health. I mean, it
Hmm.
took me a while to get my health back up to where I wanted it to be. But
Hmm.
make no mistake, perpetual overwork can be extremely debilitating. So,
Yeah.
really honor your body. It's the only one you have. And if you don't
Hmm.
treat it well with rest and well being, you're going to burn out to the point that you might not be able to recuperate. And I say that very intentionally to scare people. This is real.
Hmm. Yes. That is a good wake up call because I think people downplay it because they're not
Yeah.
ready to handle it. Like, not
Yeah.
another thing on the to do list.
Yeah.
I'll tackle burnout next year.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you a quote. And again, I love to
Hmm.
attribute people to the quotes. Paula
Hmm.
Davis is someone that I've come to know very well. And I
Hmm.
reference in my book. She is the president of the Stress and Resilience Institute, which I love. And she has this
Hmm.
brilliant quote. And she says, "You can't yoga your way out of burnout." And she's absolutely right. Take the yoga class, but that's not going to
Yeah.
change the burnout, right? Enjoy the yoga class, but that's not going to change the fact that you're on this treadmill holding on for dear
Yes.
life. And I don't mean the exercise treadmill, I mean the work treadmill, right? So I think it's a
Absolutely.
mind shift to really think, do all the things for your self-care, but
Hmm.
burnout is a workplace issue. It's not a self-care issue.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I had someone tell me to get my nails done. It's like that. One, don't have the interest. Two, not going to change
Right.
anything.
Not going to change the burnout. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great
Uh,
example. And I think that's the misperception for a lot of people. Well, take a
mhm.
vacation, just take a day and rest, take a wellness day.
Mhm.
Yes, do that because it's good for you. That is
Yeah.
not going to change a burnout.
Yes.
Burnout is a systemic issue of supply and demand at work. And
Mhm.
most individuals have more work than is humanly possible for one person to do. And we
Yeah.
see this happen. Somebody leaves because they're burned out. They don't backfill
Mhm.
that person, they redistribute their work amongst the folks that are still standing.
Yeah.
Thus, the burnout cycle continues.
Yeah. I did an exercise one time where just, really putting work activities into the math of like, okay, how long does this task take or how long
Yeah.
should it take? Even if you're, cutting off 5, 10, 15 minutes here or there, but like you just get to that phrase, the math
Yeah.
ain't mathin'. Like this is impossible. You
Exactly
can't
right.
actually do it as
Yeah.
one human
Yeah.
being.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And
if you think that you are not working hard enough, maybe do that little math exercise and check it
exactly.
out.
And I was speaking to an expert the other day who wrote a book about workplace well-being, and she said the reason the 40-hour work week happened in the
Mm,
1920s, part of that was automation. You think about Henry Ford and making of automobiles and this concept
mm,
of 24 hours and 3 8-hour shifts. Part of that was just a logical way to split it up and give people a life. But
mhm,
the human brain can also not be high functioning past 40 hours a week. Now, I'll also say, I get it. There are crunch
mhm.
times, there are deadlines. So
Yeah.
there's a roller coaster. It's not going to be an even keel 40 hours. And some
Mhm.
jobs require more than 40 hours. But to think that we're going to do our best work all the time at 90 hours a week, no way.
Yeah. I wish I could hear some of your speeches. What's your favorite,
Yeah.
do you have separate topics that you speak on?
I do, and
Okay.
I have a brand new topic called Burnout to Brilliance, and I
Ooh.
absolutely love it because it's just so deeply important to me, and I've
Mhm.
been speaking about that nationally, and I'm really jazzed about that, and I really am, Patricia. I'm on a mission just like you because burnout doesn't have to happen, right? It's like one
Yeah.
of those things that don't touch the stove. It's hot,
Yeah.
right? Just don't do it. So we know this intellectually and we can change
Mhm.
this for the better and have better lives and better workplaces. So I'm deeply inspired by that work. But I also do a lot of work on leadership, and leadership
Mhm.
is ubiquitous. Everybody talks about leadership, but my take, which is not unique, but I'm also out there because I truly believe in this. We've got to have a
Mhm.
human centered approach, right? This
Mhm. Yeah.
commanded control approach doesn't work. And we have a beautiful generation of younger professionals who are demanding and requiring
Yes.
a human centered workplace. And I'm really grateful for them because I didn't know it was
Mhm.
an option. I'm Gen
Neither did
X,
I.
and I just thought, this is it. You have no choice. And I'm so
Yeah.
grateful to the younger generations because they're teaching me your life matters. So I'm deeply
Yeah.
grateful.
Yeah. Oh, I love that phrasing because I don't think any of us knew that there was
Yeah.
an option.
Exactly, exactly.
Oh.
My role models were baby boomers and my parents,
Mhm.
and you do it because that's what you're supposed to do. Work isn't supposed to be fun. That's why they call it
Yeah.
work. And that's generational and I appreciate that, but I do think there's a
Yeah.
way for us to think differently.
Mhm. That's so true. Oh, and I wanted to end with a question about, I guess, your first opera.
Yeah.
Is there a favorite opera that you would recommend
Yeah,
to the audience that they should go see?
yeah, I think the first opera that I ever saw, and I was 18 years old at the time, and I'd seen things on video and television, but I lived in New Jersey at the time. I grew up
Mhm.
in New York, and my parents brought me to the Metropolitan Opera, and I saw The
Mm.
Marriage of Figaro, and I absolutely
Oh,
loved it,
okay.
which is a Mozart opera. And what I
Mhm.
love about it is it's very accessible. So much of that music has been commercialized, so you actually hear it in movies, scores, hear it in commercials, right? So
Yeah.
you'll hear those tunes and think, I know this. It's not unique, but it's funny and it's
Yeah.
poignant and there are loving moments as well. So I think there's an
Mhm.
emotional arc to it that is very relatable, even though it's hundreds of years old. It's
Yeah.
something that is applicable now. So I would highly encourage anyone. That's a good starter, good opportunity, and it's very widely done in this
Mhm. Yes.
country and throughout the world. So it's accessible. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. Anything that's still relatable hundreds of years
Yeah.
later makes sense.
Stood the test of time. Exactly.
Was
Yeah.
there an opera on Burnout? Because I think we need
I
to.
know. Well, yeah, but there should be. Maybe that'll be my next project, right?
You should do that.
Well, I love that idea. I'm going to write that down. I should think about that.
See, this is what we're talking about. Once you
I
get rid
like
of the
it.
burnout, you get more
Yeah,
creative.
exactly. I like that. Forget the book. We'll compose an opera.
Yes. Oh, that's lovely. Well, I have enjoyed every moment speaking with you. Thank you for all of the advice that you've shared with the listeners. What is the best way for someone to reach out to you if they want to either work with you or pick your brain?
Thank you, Patrice. It's been such a lovely opportunity to spend time with you, and I'm grateful for you and all that you do in this space. The easiest place to find me is CarolineDowd-Higgins.com, my full name.com, no hyphen between Dowd and Higgins on the
Mm.
website. And it's the mothership. I've got my podcast there, I've got my books, I've got my consulting, my speaking, and links to all my social media. I'm also very active on LinkedIn, and I put a lot of content out in the world. I really want to
Mm.
help people with resources. So thank you for allowing me to have this lovely conversation with you today.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Caroline. And thank you to all the listeners. Remember to like and review and subscribe on YouTube. And see you next time. Bye.